Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. You're looking live to the northwest out my window, about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. A slight breeze is trying to stir, and we have plenty of wind and cooler temperatures on the way. Experimenting with a Sunday evening live stream, not common for us, but just curious how many we will have here this evening. And I say hello and welcome to you. The local time is 4:47 p.m. Pacific Time on Sunday, August 11th, 2024, with another live stream, solo, openly wondering, this time about the Idaho Batholith, which is quite similar to what we did last time. I see some 5x5s. Looks like we're doing okay. Thank you for joining us. We have 200 plus already. Last time I checked, just a few minutes ago, we had 80, so everybody's showing up. Where are you viewing from this evening? Can I say hello to a number of you? And yes, if you're watching this in replay, the program will begin in about 13 minutes. I'll put a bookmark at the top of the hour when we start the actual program. Des Moines, Washington, Springfield, Illinois, Grass Valley, California, Central Ontario, Chilliwack, BC, Kent, Washington, Boone, North Carolina. You're awake in Baden, Switzerland. All right. Yeah, I know this is an odd time for those on the other side of the pond. Omak, Washington, Natchez, Pat from Natchez. Let me scroll back. There's Cousin Bob and Sherry from New Glarus, Wisconsin. Good to see you at the reunion a few weeks ago, you guys. Chesapeake, Virginia. Wenatchee in the house. Meridian, Idaho. Vancouver, Washington. Kamloops, BC. I'm back a ways. Kingsgate, Washington. Kirk from Philomath. Here's to you, Kirk. We spent the last few days in Corvallis and drove on Friday to the coast at Newport. Thought about you as we drove through town. Didn't want to bother you. Pam from Stevensville, Montana. Mukilteo, that's G. Coog. Martinez, California, exclamation point. Yeah, people are weighing in. They prefer earlier. Oh, okay. This will be fun. It's just an oh my God, are you kidding me? Garrett, the Dutch Night Owl from the Netherlands, where the local time is 1:47 a.m. Garrett, go to sleep, please. Do you need me to sing you a lullaby in Dutch? I'll leave that to Norley. San Diego, California. Bellingham, Washington. Hello, David. Kingman, Arizona. Waikele, Hawaii. Dansville, New York. Keep it going, boy. Keep it going. Come on, get the energy up. It's you've been out working in the yard all day with Liz. Come on now. You showered and everything, so let's actually do this. Dana Point, California. Phoenix, Arizona. Nashville, Tennessee. McKinleyville, California. North Central, Idaho. That's Susan Smart talking about your home turf today, Susan. Northfield, Virginia. Fairwood, Washington. Mike is in New Glarus. Mike, do I know you? Mike, are you a relative? Mike, do you have a Swiss last name? We got two people from New Glarus, Wisconsin tonight? Damn. Okay, now Ben says it's 9:48 in the morning in Sydney, Australia. It's perfect there. All right, we're picking up some folks from down under. Nice. There's Sharon from the Malaga Slide. Eugene, Oregon. I know I say this all the time. This place is a ghost town. The campus is a ghost town. The building is dead quiet. There's nobody else here. And then suddenly you're all here. It just feels good. I mowed the lawn. I chatted with Liz occasionally. I played with Bijou the cat. It's like a solo day. And then suddenly there's 362 people here. I can feel you here. I'll never get used to this, I don't think. There's Gary Paul. I'm going to see Gary tomorrow. We're filming tomorrow. Hello, Gary. Eric from Marion, Virginia. You're a regular. Outer Springs, Georgia. Not Inner Springs, but Outer Springs. Springdale, Ohio. Squim. There's Honey Greg. He's doing well. And Jonna is from Australia. Well, this is fun. If we're picking up more Australians live, that's a surprising bonus. Worth thinking about. Yeah. Bellingham, Washington. Marysville, Washington. Vermont. Long Valley Caldera. Down in California. Yeah, we still have a few minutes. I don't know. Let me give you another shout out. Yeah, still kind of calm. This is not the Weather Channel. Okay, quit screwing around. More. Donnelly, Idaho. Yeah, we got more Idahoans here. I hope interesting questions about the Idaho Batholith tonight. We'll see, but real loose. But we'll see what we end up doing. Lynn feels the love. LaPorte, Minnesota. Palouse Hills, that's Renee. Phoenix, Arizona. Kaiser, Oregon. The entire globe is here. Oh, now let's not get carried away, Steve. Kevin from Falls City, Washington. Sue from Natchez, Washington. Oh, plenty of folks I remember meeting. Flaming Andromeda from New Zealand. Hello. Need to get down there sometime. Need to get down there. New Zealand, Australia, never been. It's on our list. Lomax, Illinois. Mount Ashland, Pluton. Hello, Lori. Rogers at University Place, Washington. I'm having too much fun looking at these places. I don't know why. Sometimes I'm not that into it, I guess. Tonight, I'm into it, I guess, because I've been so solitary. Long drive yesterday. Toby is in Kuwait. Hello, Toby, with 2 hearts. Here's 2 hearts back. There's one for you, Toby. Well, there's more than one. Toby, I'm going to go crazy now. Oh, now Toby's giving me all sorts of more hearts. He's giving me silver hearts. Yuki's giving me blue hearts. I can't do... How do I do different colored hearts? I'm sure you'll tell me. By the way, Mike's got a cousin in Australia. No big deal. The Milky Way. Wiltshire, UK. Okay, Frankie. I mean, you guys get extra love for being up in the middle of the night. South Woodstock, Portland here. Sisters, Oregon. Sierra Nevada, Batholith. We're going to talk shit about Sierra Nevada, Batholith tonight. Hope, no offense. Glacial Scablander from Womack. Newcastle, Colorado. Bellevue, Colorado. We got just a couple minutes before I'm going to take a little walk outside. Yeah, it is very cool. Welcome, Kuwait. I don't know have we had a Kuwaitian before? Just got an email from Jeff Tepper. That's good. We're talking. His ears must have been burning. There's Dakota Rose, otherwise known as Daz, from Eden, NSW, Australia. NSW. New South Wales, I think. Mike's retiring. Arkansas. This is like a neighborhood newsletter. Arkansas. Arkansas City, Arkansas. Arkansas. Cincinnati, Ohio. All right. Good stuff. Thank you for being here. I don't know. Let me ask one thing before we start. We still have 5 minutes or 4 minutes before we begin. I'm sure we will be all over the place with this question. In other words, your answers. But I don't know. Let's just put it up to, hey, we got Sky Cooley. Hi, Sky. Especially if you've watched a bunch of live streams over the last few years. What were your favorite times and days? starting in November, we're going to do 2 live streams a week. And obviously, I'm not following a schedule right now. I do it when I feel like I want to do it. And I'm purposely picking different days and different times of day. And this is Sunday evening at 5 p.m. local time. I can't imagine we'll stick with this, but if we have 1,500 people here, I guess we will. What are your favorite days and times? I'm leaning towards Wednesdays at 1 p.m. and Saturday mornings at 9. I'm leaning towards that. But I think I forget now which series it was, but well, maybe I can remember. It doesn't matter. I think the exotic terrain thing, we were doing like Friday afternoon and Sunday morning. Like there were 2 that were like bam, bam at the end of the week, or basically the weekend. Does it make sense to do something on Monday? Like since I'm doing it from my office, then I'm pretty sure that I'm going to continue with my office. It's so handy, and I'm comfortable with all the cameras. No big deal. That I don't have to worry about competing with classes for the auditorium and setting all the chalkboards up and everything else. So I'll just put that out there. I see a bunch of stuff rolling by now. People are just chiming in. I know I'm not going to please everybody. Hopefully you'll want to join us live starting in early November. But, I'll probably do this a few more times before November, but it'd be fun to see what you all have to say. Okay, well, thank you for being here. I'm going to take a little walk outside. We will start in a couple of minutes. Thanks for joining us this evening for Idaho Batholith. Idaho Batholith? Are you serious? Idaho Batholith? Idaho Batholith? Idaho Batholith? Huh? Muffler boy outside. Let's see what Tepper has to say. Thank you. All right. A pleasant good evening and welcome to Ellensburg, Washington, USA. I hope that you enjoy this live stream. My goal, like last time, is to be brisk, is to be to the point, is to not go on forever and ever. 45 minutes is my goal. And I have a few specific questions about the Idaho Batholith. Most of you know about the Idaho Batholith, the most basic part of it. There's a bunch of granite in central Idaho, the Idaho Batholith. It's more complicated than that, of course, but the ultimate goal is to ask a few new questions tonight that play off of what we did last time, and then I think we're going to bring in two experts. In fact, I've just officially heard from both Rich Gashnig and Jeff Tepper. Not sure if they're with us right now live, but those two guys are going to be on screen together with me later this week. Not sure when. Not sure if it's going to be live or not. But these two live streams where I'm just workshopping ideas and questions, I'm not going to do 74 more of these because it's just a bunch of questions. So you need answers. And the best case scenario is that I stumble into a few questions that are interesting, that maybe these two guys can make some connections for us, and ideally, they hadn't made the connections before. But that's super greedy. All I'm doing is thinking hard about preceding the Cascade Volcanic Arc. So, as I did last time, can I show you my notes for tonight to see if you want to stick around? There's Docky, the document camera. Let's get some autofocus going. You're like, well, wait a minute. Aren't these the notes from last time? Yes, they are. If you saw the workshopping live stream called Idaho Volcanic Arc ? I started with exploring the idea of jump the trench and tried to make it as simple as possible, knowing that it's mostly wrong. Then I tried to introduce the Chalice outbreak and this big rash of magmas during Chalice time. We're going to do a little bit of that again because it's new for many of you. But here are the very rudimentary notes for tonight. I'd like to start doing a very quick, come on, be quick, boy, a quick review of the main thing we did last time, which is introduce the Idaho Arc ? Then the Chalice window, then the Cascade Volcanic Arcs. And this is 53 million years ago and 46 million years ago. I'm just calling these three major chapters in the Pacific Northwest. And then we get off and running talking about some newer concepts. What's a slab window? And is the subduction of a spreading ridge underneath North America the main reason to explain the Chalice magmas? Is it a simple story of subducting a divergent plate boundary and having those crazy blobs come to the surface? Or is it a slab breakoff story, not a slab window story? And is it the aftermath of accreting the last major exotic terrain to the Pacific Northwest, Silesia? Is the impact of Silesia hitting us mainly responsible for those blobs? And you're like, I don't see why colliding with Silesia would make a bunch of blobs. Well, it involves breaking a subducting plate twice. And then I guess if you really wanted to be inclusive, you can say it's both. A slab window, and within the slab window, there's a slab breakoff, and we're rolling the slab back. Then I want to go between the Idaho Batholith and its different chapters and the North Cascades in Washington, which I was part of the Dream Team over the last 5 years. I got to know the North Cascades quite well, and the magmas in the North Cascades, I want to compare and contrast between those two areas. You might go, that's dumb. I don't know why you're doing that. It might be dumb, but I know a fair amount about the North Cascades. I might want to take some of those narratives and bring them to the Idaho Batholith. And then my ultimate question, once we introduce slab breakoff, slab window, the different chapters within the Idaho Batholith, I ultimately want to ask this very simple question. In the Idaho Batholith, is it possible that there's a signature of a slab breakoff that's hidden in that batholith, that's been studied, but the significance of that bitterroot lobe is more tied to this slab breakoff story that Jeff Tepper has further to the west here in Washington. That's where we're going tonight. It's already 5:06 according to my watch. Let's go ahead and get in. Are we good? 5 by 5? All right. Let's go ahead. I don't know how this is going to go, but I'm going to try anyway. Okay, so we are establishing this idea of a volcanic arc. It's not an idea. We know the Cascade Volcanic Arc looks exactly like this, and I like a nice round number, 150 miles inland from the oceanic trench, where the ocean plate is diving beneath the continent. You have a volcanic arc, and you have this line of beautiful stratovolcanoes, and this is the Cascades, and we know the Cascades have been in existence, according to Jeff Tepper, for 46 million years. 46 million years. This is from last time. So there's our picture of the volcanic arc. We know it's a compressional regime. We know we've had 46 million years of stratovolcano activity, each individual cone active for about 2 million years at a stretch, but collectively 46 million years of stratovolcano activity. The most recent eruption, 1980, Mount St. Helens. Great. Last time I was wondering if we skip all the way down to earlier than 53 million years ago, did we have a similar tectonic story in Idaho? And was there a line of stratovolcanoes that is now central Idaho? We left it open-ended. We're going to talk to our experts later this week, especially Rich Gashnig, who's done a lot of amazing work in the Idaho Batholith. But maybe the star of the show last time were the Chalice magmas, where it's an extensional story and not a compressional story. It's 7 million years of not arc, but yet there are magmas. So what do you call all these magmas if it's not a line of stratovolcanoes? Well, I don't know what you call it. An outbreak? You got a rash of all these blobs coming up hither and yon, triggered by hot mantle flowing shallower than it should be, as opposed to a slowly sinking oceanic plate. So the Chalice magmas we established that last time are not subduction-generated magmas, and they were active for 7 million years during this extensional time, not a compressional time. Okay, so improv number 1. I want to take that thing we were just looking at and do it on a map. I was disappointed in looking at the replay with the chalkboard. You can't see the colors on the chalk. So I'm going to experiment with paper and do something like I would on the chalkboard. Let's try it. Okay? Do this fast. Talking to myself. Do this fast. So, once upon a time, there was the Idaho Arc, although we're not really sure it was an arc. And I don't know where it goes up in BC. I don't know where it goes to the south, so we'll just do that. This is the state of Idaho. This is down here. Great. Then, at 53 million years ago, what used to be a compressional regime suddenly becomes an extensional regime. Now, is that extension like this? Is that extension like this? Is that extension like this? I don't know the answer. Do we truly have a bunch of normal faults from this extensional time? If we do, we must. Is it just the low angle normal faults of the core complexes? Now that I ask myself that, I'm not even sure. But regardless of these stress regimes, the extensional regimes, the strain directions, stupid. I want to draw the Chalice magmas slightly differently than I did last time, because we're going to have the Chalice magmas show up 53 million years ago and end 46 million years ago, but here's the pattern. Red. Here's the pattern, I think. The Chalice magmas 53 million years ago are popping up over here. 52, 51, 50, 49, 48, 47, 46. So that's super cartoonish. If Jeff Tepper's watching right now, he is reaching for the alcohol because it's not nearly that simple. I think Rich, the same thing, Rich Gashnig. But we do have dates. Can I do this so you can read it? We do have dates from Jeff Tepper in these papers that are waiting for you at nickzentner.com, secure, that we can go from 52 to 44, and there is a northeast to southwest age progression, at least here in Washington. There is a beautiful age sweep, old to young, 52 million years ago to 40. Now, of course, I want this to be 53, but I don't think he has that date. But I'd love to be able to keep these numbers just the way they are and go 53 to 44. Now, do we have any kind of sweep over here? I don't think we do. But we are going to look at the Idaho Batholith carefully. So right off the bat, you can see that what is known as the Idaho Batholith now has two, according to what I've done simply so far, two distinctly different ages of magmas, green and red, green and red. The red is coming up through where the green was, so we're already losing some of the green. But is the green real? This is last time. Is the green an actual volcanic arc? I'm starting to think no. But you're not asking me. So I think I want to do this verbally. I don't want to struggle with all sorts of diagrams, but you do have some papers, and I don't know in these earliest stages if you've been going to nickzentner.com, but I remind you that in the upper right-hand corner, there are some new papers waiting for you if you click on the word Cascades. And as I mentioned last time, these are the papers that I'm currently thinking about with the Idaho Batholith and things related to the Idaho volcanic arc. And these are the more traditional Cascade papers that are waiting for you. This one by Kant, who is an undergraduate student of Jeff Tepper, is particularly good and will help you with some of the details of slab breakoff. By the way, thanks to a number of you who said, I did try to print out the Pat Pringle Mount Rainier Roadside Geology, but your link only had 19 pages and the thing's 200 pages long. I'd like to apologize. I used a link that was not complete, so I now have all 200 pages waiting for you. All 200 pages of the Pat Pringle Roadside book. Okay. What am I doing? So here's what I'm doing. So what is slab window and what is slab breakoff? Can I do it? I said I was going to do it verbally. I'll do it verbally. So the chalice is the weird time, right? 53 to 46. Let's just do it verbally. Let's just look into each other's eyes. And we need to explain this. And not only this, but hot mantle coming close to the surface, triggering a bunch of melts, triggering a bunch of magmas. I said I'd do it verbally, but let's remind you that it's these and it's these. That's not an arc. That's not subduction. So how do you tectonically explain the chalice magmas? There's basalt, andesite, dacite, rhyolite. There's all sorts of chemistries. It's not one kind of lava. So what are the ideas out there? Idea one, there's a spreading ridge that is subducting beneath the Pacific Northwest during chalice time. And if you take a spreading ridge, you know what a spreading ridge is. That's a spreading ridge. It's called the East Pacific Rise. That's a spreading ridge. It's called the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. Heard of it? So what happens if you have one of these spreading ridges, you want to zoom in? No, let's not. What happens if this thing happens to be oriented like this? Orientated like this. You have a continent crossing over something that is actively spreading and making new crust. And this is a gap. This is essentially a gap between two oceanic plates. So can you mentally do this? Can you take this and have it oriented like this? And you're making the new ocean plates in both directions. But here comes our continent, the Pacific Northwest, and it's sliding right over this active gap. That's the idea to explain the chalice magmas. And if you have the magmas going all the way back to the Dakotas, like I stopped them here, but I really honestly don't know. First of all, I know that there are more chalice magmas going back here, the Absarokas, Devil's Tower, and even getting back to South Dakota. Do these keep getting older? I don't think so. I would have heard about it, I think, if they do. Again, our well-behaved age pattern, our age sweep is here in Washington. I don't really know if that's the story here, but one way to explain this magma storm is to say that this thing in orange, it was a spreading ridge that was intersecting the Pacific Northwest. This is continental crust, right? So it's like this thing here, actively spreading ocean crust. I think you have it now. And why did I make this orange line thinner? Well, I'm trying to imply to you, just improv off the top of my head, that maybe this spreading ridge is still kind of down there. I don't know if it's spreading anymore, but it's a gap where the hot mantle can come up. Are you seeing it? Are you seeing that this is one tectonic explanation? What I'm doing is explaining a slab window idea. And one of the papers waiting for you, I won't bother to go for it, or go to it right now, is a relatively new paper by Bob Miller, Mike Eddy, and Jeff Tepper. And their title is something like Ridge Subduction. And all the craziness going on in the Pacific Northwest due to the ridge subduction. Well, ridge subduction is this. This is a seafloor spreading ridge, and we're subducting the ridge. But it's not that the important thing is we're not subducting a mountain range. We're subducting a major gap that's 100 kilometers deep between two oceanic plates. And that gap, I guess, goes back to the Dakotas. Now, I don't even have to look at the comments to anticipate what you're typing right now. And some of you typed it last time as well, because you're way ahead of us, of course. You're way ahead of me. Why is there an age sweep then, if it's a simple ridge subduction story? Why would you have this 52 to 44 million year age sweep getting younger as you go towards the edge of the continent if this is the simple story? Well, Jeff Tepper says that's not that simple. There may well be a slab gap, a slab window, a spreading ridge that's subducting beneath us. But Jeff Tepper says It's not just that. Jeff Tepper says, I think we have a slab break-off and a slab rollback as well. We're going to have him talk more specifically about it and the geochemistry of the magmas to back this up. But let me just finish the thought on what Tepper at least is saying. And I think others are saying as well. I'm not sure Mike and Bob are, but I think Tepper is big into this rollback because he has this age progression. Okay, what does he have again? He has 52 to 44. So within the slab gap, within the slab window, he has magmas getting younger and younger and younger. Why would he do that? Tepper says, in the area inland of where Silesia is coming in. It's getting messy now, but hope you can follow me. You see my notes again? If you get into this slab break-off and slab rollback idea, those go together, rollback and break-off. Now we're talking about Silesia. And we're talking about Silesia with Ken Clark's beautiful illustrations that we're going to look at again right now. This is Ken and Jeff Tepper together. And so this picture doesn't look like a slab window, does it? This cartoon doesn't even have a spreading ridge on it. It doesn't have the orange thing. It's just got a simple, huge, large igneous province. Maybe it should even be bigger than it's portrayed here, but now I'm talking out of turn. But when you start to take Silesia and have it approach the trench and choke the trench, that is going to be enough mass to clog the drain, to screw things up, and to break the plate. So do you have it? If you're talking about breaking a slab in the subsurface, and slab is the ocean plate, that's all that means. We talk about slab, that's an ocean plate that has left the surface, and that ocean plate is down underneath us. That's a slab that broke off from the rest of the downgoing plate. And the only reason this thing is breaking is because of Silesia. If we didn't have Silesia, if we didn't have Silesia out here, we would just continue to subduct this ocean plate. We wouldn't have a problem. But it's trying to digest this beast that's riding on the oceanic plate, here portrayed as the Farallon Plate, that we're going to break the thing. Okay, I'm laboring this too much, but I don't know. It feels new to kind of labor it for me, I guess. Slab break-off and slab roll back is only happening because you're trying to deal with something that just slammed onto the edge of the coast. That is new. I haven't said it quite like that before. Maybe I'll back off of that when we talk to Jeff and Rich later this week, but right now I like it. So this is super sketchy, and like, why don't you take there's a bunch of people watching. There's 800 people watching live. Why don't you make professional looking diagrams? Get off my back, number one. Number two, I want to keep my momentum going. I just want to sketch stuff out and just put it out here for everybody, and for myself included. And yes, I'm taking these videos and emailing them to the geologists so that they know what I want to talk about, so I don't blindside them when we do a Zoom interview. So yeah, it's just a sketch I did an hour ago. All right, so the idea is you accrete Silesia, you have it collide with North America. We were just looking at the professional versions of it. Now you're looking at the amateur version of it. But here's where Tepper is quite specific. With his break-off and rollback model, Tepper says I need for my model to kind of work to have breaking of the ocean plate in conjunction with Silesia, I guess, 60 million years ago. And Jeff is not exactly sure where that happened. He's guessing Montana. But you know what I'm going to guess today, because you just saw my outline. I'm going to guess northern Idaho. I'm going to guess, I'll even write it. Is this break number 1 that works nicely in Tepper's model, is this the Bitterroot lobe of the Idaho Batholith? That's a B. The ages and the geographic distribution of the Bitterroot lobe are promising from this amateur's eye. Finish the thought. Jeff Tepper is much more confident on a second break. I'll do another color. On a second break. And he's got the rocks to prove it. He's got the student theses at the University of Puget Sound to prove it. He spent the last 20 years supervising student work, and they have built this case for a second break of the Farallon Plate. And that is this thing. At least I think it is. I'm looking at it now. It's a little bit further east than I thought it would be in this sketch. But the details of the basalt of Summit Creek, the Silver Pass volcanics, a bunch of stuff in my neighborhood that I'm embarrassed to say I hardly know anything about. But that second break is big. And you're like, why do we need breaks? Why do we need rollback? What's a rollback? You haven't told me what that is. Give me a second, but there's a lot to talk about, and we haven't even gotten to the Idaho Batholith, but I hope you can see why I'm going to the Idaho Batholith. And what's the question I'm going to end with? Is the first break of the Farallon Plate documented by some blobs of magma that are now in the Idaho Batholith, a.k.a. the Bitterroot lobe? That's where I'm headed. Okay, so why do we need breaks? Well, the idea is that when you break a plate, this starts sinking. It's broken off from the rest of the plate. We haven't done this one yet. Now, this is just break 1. And so this is a continuous slab of material. Are you ahead of me? We have a slab break. We have this slab starting to droop. It becomes flaccid, if you like. It, more professionally, rolls back. And the idea is that if we have, this is mantle. Was it orange last time? Yeah, it was. So the chalice magmas are hot and dry. The chalice magmas have geochemical signatures. See the next live stream or recorded Zoom interview to talk more about that. But the geochemical experts who know igneous petrology, Rich Gashnig and Jeff Tepper, our guests later this week, they need mantles surging to the surface to trigger the chalice magmas, the hot, dry magmas. And so to get this mantle to surge towards the surface in a subduction zone area, we need to break the frickin' plate. This mantle can't get to shallow depths otherwise. So you break it, you start to roll it back, and the mantle takes advantage and generates a bunch of Swiss cheese, chalice magmas. I hope you're following me. But Jeff says, okay, first of all, do you see why the rollback is attractive? The rollback is attractive because now I've got orange. Hey, look, everybody, I got a right hand. but it's orange, okay? It's neon orange. This is an orange right hand. So here's orange mantle coming here and triggering some chalice magmas. But if we start to roll back or droop or become flaccid or less excited than we once were, okay, I promise I'll stop. That orange mantle, as the rollback continues, is going to work its way southwest. Orange here, orange here, orange here, orange here. Do you see it? A drooping or rolling back of the slab allows for hot mantle to work its way northwest to southeast, northwest to southeast. In this case, the rollback or the drooping is like that. Does that help? This is a Goodyear blimp view, huh? This is an overhead hot air balloon view. We're breaking it somewhere over in Montana, says Tepper. But I wonder if it's the Bitterroot lobe, and then we start rolling this thing and we march our chalice magmas in this direction. The live chat is scrolling like crazy. I hope that's positive instead of, huh? I hope it's positive. I hope you can see it. But Tepper wants to break it again. He wants break number 2 in blue, which is probably a mistake, but whatever. And one of the reasons he wants a second break is because he has bimodal volcanism here. In other words, he has some, okay. How do we really know we have a break-off in the subsurface? What do those magmas look like directly above a break-off? I think what I learned from Tepper a few years ago is that you have bimodal volcanism. You have runny basalts and you have sticky rhyolites and not much in between. We're going to have to revisit that with him. But if that's true, if his break-off belt number 2 in blue is another surge of mantle because we have another break and we have bimodal volcanism. Bimodal means 2 types. Bimodal lavas, basalts and rhyolites. And that's the Chianaway basalt. That's a bunch of, I don't have them all in my head right now, but he's got magmas and chemistries and ages that suggest a 49 million year old break right underneath frickin' Ellensburg, man. I should have known about this a long time ago, but Tepper didn't publish until recently on this. Are there bimodal lavas in the Bitterroot lobe of the Idaho Batholith? All right. So you tuned in for something called Idaho Batholith. Have we been to Idaho yet? No. But that's the last part of this. Now that you know the model, and you know what slab rollback and slab breakoff twice is, and you know that's established for the Cascades. I mean, we're talking about the Cascade volcanoes here. These are rocks that you can find in the Cascades today, even though they predate the Cascade volcanic arc. All right, wow, look at this. So, is there anything we can do in the Idaho Batholith that seems applicable? So, if you've been a veteran of our scene, and you were with us with the crazy Eocene A to Z, primarily, you knew that we were obsessed with the 3 batches, the 3 magmatic flare-ups in the North Cascades of Washington. And the North Cascades of Washington, it's Mappy McMap, everybody. Get your tissues out, man. We went through it all together. The North Cascades of Washington are very complicated, but the dream team of Bob Miller, Stacia Gordon, and Mike Eddy has spent the last 5 years mapping and doing detailed work with structural geology, with metamorphic petrology, with magmas, Mike Eddy, and many of those are Challis magmas. I want to go to Idaho and look at the Idaho Batholith and see if there's any reason to compare between the batches of magma. And you're like, what? Look at this. This is the craton. This brown is old North America. This is you talking to me. You do realize the Idaho Batholith is entirely built in old North America. And you do realize, dumbass, that all those magmas in the North Cascades are coming up through exotic terrains. Yeah, I'm aware. How dare you? I'm aware that the passive margin is much what am I doing? I'm aware that the passive margin is different than the exotic terrains. But when I did an Idaho Batholith episode in the Crazy Eocene, and I had Dave Rogers on, there was a lot of agreement between the batches of magmas in the North Cascades of Washington and the Idaho Batholith. I don't want to go any further than I need to, or I don't want to make connections that aren't there necessarily. But I know the North Cascades. I don't know much about the Idaho Batholith. Can we learn something from comparing those? And that's what this hastily drawn thing is. Let's do it. Let's even get it as big as possible because there's a lot on this. Hope everybody's doing okay. I'm still hoping to be done in 15 minutes. And then we'll go to some live question and answers. Okay, that's as good as I can do. Let's get a pointer. Look what's at the bottom. You're not going to believe it. Wrangellia. Basil Tikoff's hit and run model. That North America hits this massive super terrain known as Wrangellia with a large igneous province as the centerpiece. Remember? Carmouchen basalts of Vancouver Island and Nikolai basalts up in southeast Alaska. That's kind of where the story starts, I think. Okay, here's the Idaho Batholith. Here are the North Cascades. Let's start with what I'm familiar with in the North Cascades. You remember this if you were with us. There are 3 major batches of magmas in the North Cascades of Washington. We called them a late Cretaceous flare-up, a tweener flare-up, less voluminous, and a crazy Eocene flare-up. Yes, I was doing this back a few years ago, extension and Swiss cheese. You might remember that I was a fan. I don't think many are. Maybe most are by now. I don't know. But I was a big fan of Wrangellia and friends hitting Idaho and generating not only thrust faults inland of the suture, but major plutons. And I was a fan of those being slab failure plutons and not subduction-generated magmas. And you're like, I lost you there. Well, I don't think we should get into the details there necessarily. But we do have a batch of magmas, both in the Idaho Batholith and the North Cascades, that are younger than 100 and older than 85. And both the North Cascade magmas and the Idaho Batholith magmas shut off at 85. Let's just keep with this, and then I'm going to try to draw a little bit of the Idaho Batholith. This is the most mysterious to me. We never did come up with a tectonic model for the North Cascades, at least I didn't, to make these tweener flare-ups. We're talking about magmas now. But the main phase of the Idaho batholith in the south is known as the Atlanta lobe between 83 and 67. And then in the north, this is the one that I'm most interested in, the Bitterroot lobe between 66 and 53. You remember the ages now of our break number 1. Then 53, you know what happens. We suddenly go from compression to extension, and the chalice magmas of Idaho are the same essentially as the crazy Eocene flare-ups in the northern Washington. I want to know, is this break-off number 1? And you're like, okay, well, show me on a map where that is. Well, I'll try. This is from one of the Gashnig papers. Is this going to work? Maybe. My colors are wrong now, but let me try. Here's Boise, Idaho. Haley, Stanley in the Stanley Basin, Elk City, Orofino, Idaho, Lewiston, Idaho. You got your bearings? This is essentially the Idaho batholith, although I've noticed that Rich Gashnig does not really technically include the chalice in the Idaho batholith. I guess because it's so blotchy, but also because the magmas are so weird. Oh, you know what I'm going to try? So you can see faintly I've got red, green, and blue. Probably a mistake. I'll probably change the colors a million times, but we'll do that for now. So let me outline the chalice magmas. We'll just try it this way. So I'm kind of going backwards, but maybe you can follow me. So the magmas that we've been focusing on for a program and a half are these guys. They are these guys, right? Here's Idaho, and here's the chalice magmas that are just, and this is only the Idaho area, but we could keep with the red circles going all the way to the Dakotas, and we can do with the red circles all the way to the coast. And yeah, there are the red circles. So what I'm wondering is, maybe I'm finding a flaw in my yeah, I think I am finding a flaw already. Well, let's ignore the flaw for right now. I think I'm seeing, oh boy. If I do green, I can't even see that as green. Hang with me. Green is Atlanta and Bitterroot. That's my choice. Most other people, including mostly Rich Gashnig, says these are two separate chapters, but I'm playing with the idea that these are both the main phase. They're just south and north. They're both paraluminous, whatever the hell that means. I honestly don't know. And we're between 85 and 53. So I'm kind of saying that and that outlined in green are the main phases. Is this break number 1? I should have used purple. Is this, look at how cute this is. It's far north. Oh, why is it so far north? Why is it just here that we have these 66 to 53 million year old Bitterroot lobe granites? There's no lavas with these? Were there ever any volcanoes with these main phases of the Atlanta and the Bitterroot? And similar to the tweeners in the North Cascades, is this a volcanic arc? Is this simple subduction? And you go, yeah, I guess, maybe it is. But then I realized, I caught myself halfway through the last program, a bunch of the exotic terrains are here. You can't have a trench right here on the state line. A bunch of the exotic terrains are already here by the time we get to the tweener time, by the time we get to the main phase time. So I don't see how you can have subduction in a true volcanic arc in the Idaho Batholith, never mind the fact we don't have any volcanoes left or any scraps of any lavas or lahars or anything. Okay, it's a ways back. That doesn't bother me too much. But I don't know how you can subduct an ocean plate and make Idaho volcanic arc rocks with stratovolcanoes if a bunch of these exotic terrains have already arrived. And suddenly we're into Baja, BC, of course, because what is happening between 85 and 53? The fucking mega whale. Sorry, Patrick. It's probably overkill, but the last thing I want to do is simply, is it worth it? I think it is. Thanks for still being here. We still have more than 800 live viewers. This is the last thing I want to do. Haven't tried it before, but I want to give it a try with some colored pencils. And then we'll go to your live questions for another 10, 15 minutes. Okay? Here's my attempt to show the Idaho Batholith develop before your very eyes. And it's buried in the Rich Gashnig papers. There's a bunch of them, but there's just two that I'm highlighting. There's just two of the Rich papers at nickzentner.com. But the 2016 paper keeps saying, Rich and Basil and others are saying, you never do get a full look at the magmas in the Idaho Batholith because the batholith keep invading from below what was already there. So you keep eating the older stuff and assimilating it, and in some cases compressing it to being unrecognizable. That's the Western Idaho Shear Zone. So this could be fantasy as well, but let's try it anyway. And we can have Rich Gashnig next time take me to task. So I've got cute little colored pencils. Look at these little guys. Okay, and I'm going to pick brown for the first chapter of the Idaho Batholith. It's the passive margin. It's sedimentary rocks that go back to the Precambrian. Then I want to go blue. And blue is the first major batch of magmas, the oldest granites of the Idaho Batholith. And I like them being a direct result of failing a slab when Wrangellia hits. Now, as far as I know, we could have slab break off and roll back and everything, and who knows if it's westward versus eastward subduction. I don't think it matters. Robert Hildebrand is the biggest proponent of the fact that, look, every time you've got Wrangellia hitting, you've got major amounts of plutonic activity, including Mount Stewart, inland. Never mind the fact that there are major thrust faults, like the Windy Pass Thrust, just north of Ellensburg, Washington. Then I'm going to grab green for our mystery tweener time that may or may not be subduction. I guess the green will also be included in our potential breakoff. And then, of course, you know I'm doing red for the chalice. So you're like, I already know all this. Why are you doing it this way? Well, I think this might work. I think there's a chance this might work. Ready? Begin. Brown. Once upon a time, the edge of North America looked like this. And there was open ocean here. This is back 1,000 million years ago, and 800 million years ago, and 600 million years ago. and 400 million years ago. And even when Pangea is starting to break up 200 million years ago, this is still the map. And much of Idaho is here. And these sedimentary rocks, which are now metasedimentary rocks, brown, if you can't see it, are draped over much older exotic terrains, making up the craton of North America. Move on. Wrangellia hits at the latitude of Idaho and places further south. It's a massive exotic terrain, Wrangellia. And then if you like, if you're a hit-and-run model proponent, starting after 85, so it hits 100 million years ago, and then the whole thing starts sliding up the coast between 85 and 55 million years ago. Doesn't matter. What matters is that our first and oldest batch of magmas of the Idaho Batholith, these metaluminous plutons, dominate. I'll just do that. So the blue plutons, which are the result of Wrangellia hitting Idaho, maybe these are too far north, oh well. Maybe they're down here too, I don't know. But there's a lot of material. The hit of Wrangellia and the compression and distortion and deformation along the western Idaho shear zone takes a lot of granite of blue time and compresses it down to like, I don't know, 50 yards. Bob, are you still here? Cousin Bob and Sherry were at the Zentner reunion last July, and Bob and Sherry drove all the way out from Wisconsin last year, this month, and went to the Penrose in McCall, Idaho, led by Basil Tikoff and Stacia Gordon. And I was just chatting with Bob, with all the relatives. And I said, Bob, it was so great that you and Sherry came all the way out. It was such a surprise to see you guys in the parking lot. What's one memory that pops to mind, Bob, when we were out there with Basil in particular, along the Salmon River? And he said, that's easy. Because there was a moment that we're all got our nose on the outcrop in the western Idaho shear zone. We're trying to make sense of what we're looking at, and there were some questions back and forth with Basil. And finally, Basil said, look, let me just say it as simple as I can. This was a pluton that was 5 counties wide, and it got crunched down to 5 van lengths or something crazy. And we're all like, holy shit. That's what Rich Gashnig and Basil Tikoff are saying in this paper. That if you look carefully, hang on. Here. That if you look carefully, this is 2016. This is a very compressed portion of the Idaho Batholith. This navy blue should be way wider, according to Basil and Keegan Schmidt, but it got crunched down to this. And then there's some of these little dark guys over by Stanley as well that are from this old time. But my point is, when you finally get to green, I know that's blue, we're going to have trouble now, but when you finally get to green, the green, right, main phase, the green is going to eat up through almost everything. It should be even bigger, but it's not, just so you can see this. So you're like, oh, there's not that much blue magma. There's not that much blue. Bullshit, there's a lot of blue magma, but much of it got squeezed way too tiny. And a bunch of the blue got invaded from below, and a bunch of the green came up through. And a bunch of the green was up here too, of Atlanta time. Now I need another color. Orange. But then coming up through the green, the Bitterroot is wiping it out because it's eating up through the green, which ate up through the blue. You kind of seeing it now? So you can look at a map of the batholith and you go, oh yeah, the blue stuff came up here, this blue stuff came up here, this green stuff came up here. But there's that three-dimensional thing. We need an animation for it, I think. And then what's the last thing we're going to do? Swiss cheese. Speaking of Swiss people, magma storm. So there's many stories hidden in the Idaho Batholith. And when I went to graduate school in Idaho, we only knew one story. The Idaho Volcanic Arc. Well, that is no longer the story, mostly because of the work of one guy, Rich Gashnig, who was a PhD student at Washington State University and did a decade's worth of intense work in the batholith, giving us all these different chapters. And you're going to get a chance to meet Rich later this week. It should probably be live. Maybe I'll figure out how to do it live on Thursday with these guys. That's the end of my presentation. Let's go to the outline, make sure I've got it all. I got it all. Hope you understand what these are. I'm lobbing questions out to the experts. And if more questions than answers bothers you, then I guess you're new to my world here, because we specialize in questions and potential connections. Let's do some live Q&A. It's approaching 6 p.m. We'll go for 15 minutes and then we'll call it a night. Thank you for being here. Uppercase for your questions, please. A delay in the comments. I hope everything's going well with you, wherever you are. Still looking for some uppercase. We got no questions? Here we go. Square peg. Do the slabs on both sides of the window break off and roll back, or is it only the northern side that rolls back? I'm having trouble with that. Thank you for the question. And when we get Jeff, I think it's official, I think. We're going to have Jeff Tepper and Rich Gashnig on together with me, and I think we're going to do it live sometime on Thursday. I think that's the day. And so Jeff came up with a hand gesture that I don't think is obscene. He's got a rollback like this. So he's got a plate that is rolling back, and then we're breaking it twice, remember? But there's two sides to this thing. So I think ultimately, what was the question? Yeah, I think both sides of the window break off. So you're okay, it's coming back to me. It's like if this is the plate that's going to roll back, is this correct for you? I think it is. We're going to sever these two fingers. We're going to, we're going to separate these two fingers from this. Separate these two fingers from this, separate these two fingers from this, and separate these two fingers from the rest of the plate down below. So just these two fingers are duct taped together and are hanging under Idaho. That's Gene Humphreys' Idaho slab curtain. I was going to use cookie sheets. Maybe I just need to start whacking away at my hands with a machete. Pat from That Cheese. Could Karn Siglox's work perhaps assist and support some of these connections? Maybe, but I think I'm going to try, first of all, Pat, because Karin is such a global person, I don't think she's thinking a lot about Western North America lately. I may be wrong. I'm going to go to Spencer Fuston and Gene Humphreys first. But I love Karen so much that I might come back to her as well. John, can you guess the drink? Oh, thank you. Sean, how does the story change if Siglock's work is included and subduction direction is flipped? Okay, a lot of you guys, I was so in love with Karin. I still am. And I'm so in love with the westward subduction thing back during Rangelia time that I can see why you guys are all remembering that, because I was going all in on that. I think there's still slab failure regardless if it's westward or eastward, because we're closing the ocean and therefore removing the ocean plate that's between Rangelia and North America. But I can't remember more than that. Thank you. Tennessee Greg, can you have subduction without a volcanic arc? Well, our thank you, Greg. Our subduction today, Cascade Volcanic Arc, has plenty of beautiful volcanoes. And I think any place that we have subduction worldwide, we have a line of volcanoes above it. And Greg, I think you're saying, do we have to have volcanoes? Can't we just have subduction and not volcanoes? Can't we just have a bunch of magmas that stay underground? I'm not sure that's possible, but it's an interesting question. I think it was Sean Wilsey in Idaho, many of you know him, that commented and wondered, why are there all sorts of chalice plutons and lavas? But all this older stuff in the Idaho Batholith, it's just the plutons, there's no lavas. Were there volcanoes from these other times? And you might go, well, yeah, probably, but it's really old. I don't think you should expect to find all sorts of lavas and volcanoes. I'm sure they all got eroded away. And I think that's generally the story in the North Cascades, too. I don't think we typically have much, if any, lavas from 87 million years ago. Maybe we do. Always interesting questions. Russell, when it was squished, did it go up, down, or lengthwise? Oh, the western Idaho shear zone. Probably all the above. That's a flippant answer, but that was a major. There was 100 kilometers of northward motion, strike-slip motion, but not nearly the amount of offset that Basil Tikoff thought would be there. He was looking for the Baja BC fault when he first started at the western Idaho shear zone 25 years ago. Rob, could the slab break have been a tear that started in the south and moved north, causing the spread in age of the magmas? Rob, I think you're talking about this, maybe. Rob, are you talking about the Atlanta and then we migrate to the north and get to the Bitterroot? And are you imagining a tear and a migration back then? Yeah, but the game is, sure, why not? But the game is finding the slabs. That is what Karin keeps saying in her work. You can hypothesize all the plates you want, but let's go find them. We can find them. We can find all these plates. We can find plates that subducted more than 100 million years ago. They're down there. Do you remember a bunch of that stuff? A big curtain of stuff underneath New York City? That was the main evidence for the westward subduction business. So if we're talking about all sorts of potential subduction to make the Idaho Batholith younger than 100, younger than 80, where are the slabs? They should be down there. By the way, here's a thought. Here. Here's the thought. You know, I know a bunch of you want to talk about the Yellowstone hotspot. It is interesting that the Yellowstone mantle plume has a major signature out here off the coast of Northern California. That was the original latitude of Soletzia. And then we kind of lose much of the signature of the Yellowstone hotspot, as conventional story goes, underneath this exotic terrain stuff. And then starting at the edge of the craton, the edge of the brown, there's a very clear march of the Yellowstone mantle plume, as we all know, underneath the Snake River Plain of Idaho and ending in today's Yellowstone Park. Here's the thought. If we have rollback so beautifully laid out with an age sweep of 52 to 44, is that only possible in terrain material? Is the craton and the passive margin on top of it so thick and so stable and so old that even if we are breaking plates, is it less possible to find the signatures of them? Because this material is so much different than this material? Benjamin, was Soletzia straddling a ridge and was the eastern side of a different plate to the Farallon? Depends on who you talk to. Now again, thank you, Benjamin. You'll notice that Tepper and Clark, just for simplicity, don't want to bother with a spreading ridge here. Some earlier versions that Ken drew, that Jeff Tepper published, has a spreading ridge offset beautifully. You're asking the right questions. I mean, do we throw everything but the kitchen sink into our model? They're all in play during this time. Yellowstone mantle plume, spreading ridge, offset by a bunch of transformed faults, exotic terrains moving north, Baja, BC or not, Columbia embayment, western Idaho shear zone, passive margin and break the plate twice. Which plate? Resurrection? Kula? Farallon? That's why I'm in this zone for a while. And whether we do any of this stuff in November for real with the Cascade Volcanic Arc, I'm not sure. But I'm having a blast trying to get back into this stuff again. And it looks like many of you are following what I'm saying. No surprise there. I'll look for 3 more. And I'll be very excited to read all of your comments later on in the replay. PMGN844. Is the Idaho Batholith associated with other terrains, Rangelia Insular, etc., and not Soletzia? The Idaho Batholith has so many different ages and therefore so many different potential connections to different exotic terrains that I think we can include all of those, including Soletzia, because the Chalice magmas are overprinting everything. You remember my point? My point is we wouldn't have these red blotches if it wasn't for Soletzia, because I strongly favor the slab break off and rollback model of Jeff Tepper. Kevin Tice from Fall City. This eliminates the idea of flat slab subduction? Well, I am the guy with the very popular video online that just is talking about the Rocky Mountains and saying flat slab subduction is ridiculous. because of Karn Siglock's work and the fact that we can't see this flat slab going all the way underneath North America from sea to shining sea. And yet, Kevin, Jeff Tepper, with his 2 breaks, I think he wants flat slab going all the way. He wants a continuous Farallon Plate, as I understand it, or maybe Kula, I don't. He wants flat slab subduction to get that first break happening so far inland. So if I'm excited about Tepper's work, and I am, then maybe I need to be the guy talking about flat slab subduction, at least with this vintage. 2 more. Kirk, when does the laramide orogeny come into the picture? Kirk, thank you. The laramide orogeny is... So, okay, look, that's one thing I promise not to forget. You remember in past alphabets, I took the time, 2 or 3 letters, I think 6 letters when we did the exotic terrains, to set the table. And it was my attempt to just remove a bunch of stuff that was just going to distract us because it wasn't of the right age or the right place. And with these brainstorming sessions, reading the replay last time and reading this one again, I'm confident you guys will be all over the place with different ages and different concepts because you remember us talking about it and you're wondering if it's kind of related or not. And so I'm just simply trying to say that I'm going to need to do the same kind of framing in the first few letters this November, I think. To just say, here's some interesting stuff, but we're not going to use it this winter. Because by November, I'll have the questions I want to work on all winter with the Cascades. And so I'll lay stuff out and then say, not going to be helpful. I won't be saying, don't ask about it anymore, but I'll be kind of saying that. Now, I'm picking on you, Kirk, and I don't mean to, because the laramide time is definitely part of this. The laramide orogeny ended 53 million years ago when we switched from compression to extension. And so the laramide and the severe, if you remember those stories, were mostly tied to this time of thrust faults and then more steeply inclined faults, reverse faults. The thrust faults were severe. The more steeply inclined faults were reverse, severe laramide, all during this time. And if you're asking, is the laramide happening during this time? I guess it is. Okay. Bonus points for you, Kirk. Right. If I'm saying the laramide shuts off up here, we must have the same kind of compression here. I guess we do, but why are we doing all that major Rocky Mountain uplifting here? Are we? We are, right? The laramide is when we're building a lot of the Colorado Rockies. Okay, I'm getting confused. That's a sign of a good question. You think you know the answer, and then you keep thinking, and you get more and more confused. You got me. Down to live, we'll do 2 more, and then I promise we're done. Looking for uppercase, close to live here. I'm sure I missed a bunch. Sharon from Malaga. When Chalice stops 44 million years ago and Cascade Arc begins, isn't the slab window still open? Could this be what led to the creation of the Columbia River basalt fissures? Interesting. So we're back to our orange, which maybe is a misleading illustration. You heard Sharon's question. She's like, if this was an important window during this time, is it still an important window? And is it an accident that the Columbia River basalt fissures are right on trend with this thing? And is the Yellowstone mantle plume taking advantage of this? Okay, now I'm adding. Good question. One more. Don from Los Angeles. Could the spreading ridge tear have been the origin of the... Okay, so there we go. You guys are answering each other's questions without even meaning to. A toast to you. Here's to your health today, tomorrow, and the next day. Here's to the health, your physical and mental health of all your family and friends, and you. Here's to all of us learning together. I hope you know by now that I don't know the answers to these questions. I'm openly curious about things in the Pacific Northwest, and I now have a way to get answers, not just by email, but learning from you and learning from the experts who are willing to come on here because you guys are here. So here's to all of us. Okay, I'm going out in the field the next couple of days. I think it's likely there will be a live stream with 2 talking heads plus mine on Thursday, but I'm not sure of that. So keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, I thank you all for joining us today. I love you, and we'll see you next time here from the office, room 134 of Discovery Hall. Oh, hang on. I'm beginning a lot of questions about this. I announced this casually, but I want to announce it formally, mostly to answer these emails I keep getting. Have you been to Ellensburg to attend a downtown lecture in the past? At the Morgan Auditorium on First Avenue in beautiful downtown Ellensburg. Well, if you haven't and you'd like to attend 3 brand new Cascade Volcano lectures that will be given publicly, live, at the Morgan Auditorium and recorded also for YouTube, you are welcome. There's more than 700 seats in the Morgan Auditorium. You're welcome to come to all 3 nights if you like. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. April 3rd, April 4th, and April 5th of 2025. 7 p.m. April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th of 2025. The auditorium is reserved. The film crew is ready to roll. And that will be our culmination of Cascade Volcanoes A to Z this coming winter. Thank you. Goodbye from Ellensburg, Washington. I already did that. Goodbye from Ellensburg, Washington, USA. I'll see you later this week. Goodbye. Thank you for joining us and watching and contributing mentally.